Hey everybody, welcome to the UGA Sports Live podcast. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Dayne Young, Dave McMahon, Jim Donnan, and Jake Roos. Everybody is here. We're a day later than normal, but there was a good reason for that. We had a special interview for you yesterday. Coach Donnan and Dayne Young had Paul Finebaum on. He talked for 30 minutes about Georgia. He talked about Florida and Oklahoma and Clemson and a bunch of teams that Georgia's going to face. He talked about Saban and Alabama. It's a fantastic interview. You need to check it out. It's the only reason we'd bump our show for 24 hours. Plus, we had a couple scheduling issues. But other than that, the fact that we had a great interview with Paul Finebaum that you need to check out. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but folks listen to him. Folks check him out. And he has great guests. And, you know, a lot of people go on his show. He actually came on ours. So we thought that was good enough to drop into our normal Tuesday noon spot. So if you haven't had a chance to go see that, I know tens of thousands of people have, but you could be 10,001. So go check out the Paul Finebaum interview with UGASports.com. It's a great piece, and I appreciate Coach Donnan and Dayne Young knocking that out.
I want to say too, Roddy, real fast that we're just really trying to make an effort in the off season to let you hear some other voices that you may not always through our networks. And we know a lot of people, obviously Coach's network is full. We've all met people that we want to hear from, and we're trying to give some exposure to some of the other sports at UGA too. So if you go back on our feed, you'll have women's tennis coach Jeff Wallace. You'll have men's tennis coach Manny Diaz. We've got Jack Bowerly on tap. That's already been recorded. We have to put that out there too. So got a lot of good stuff coming in off-season content from UGASports.com.
And I mean, heck, we had Jeff Foxworthy on not too long ago. So there's a lot of big names coming through, and we appreciate those shots. We're here at Classic City Eats. If you get a chance, swing by, check out the place. They're putting in each Sunday. They're working on their back room that has the golf simulator in it, and that is scheduled to be here later this month. So you can come here and play your simulated golf and bring your leagues in and have all that. They got the big smoker in the back, new menu, fantastic place. You can see the game room behind us. We'll go back there, play a little skee ball or motorcycle race, when the show's over. But if you get a chance, swing by Classic City Eats in Watkinsville. It's on Highway 15, the Greensboro Highway, just past the railroad tracks.
Just like Alice's restaurant.
I know you're going to go there. I know you do damn well. So anyway, just recently, I guess it was starting last Thursday, we had the NFL draft. A record number of Georgia players drafted. Then a bunch of them signed free agent deals. And it was funny to see some people saying there was this whole subtext going on about Kirby developing talents. And I'm like, well, it's got a 3-star in the first round, but then they pointed to some 5-stars that transferred or did not get drafted high. And I don't know, I'm like, if you're getting record guys drafted, and then we had a story from Brent Rollins, you could have another record next year. That seems like a good thing to me, but maybe I'm just being too literal. Coach, give me your thoughts on the draft and how you think it worked out for the Dogs.
I thought it was really good. Full of what kind of players Georgia's developing, and also the potential they got for the league. Certainly, there's always going to be some surprises about people. Well, this guy should have gone higher. This guy, why didn't he do that? It's not an exact science, but it really is a different situation now without the combine this year, without the pro scouts actually going around as much. You had the pro days, but I really think it helped a little bit as far as the kids being a little fresher at the pro days, not having to, do everything that they normally do. So the times maybe probably a little bit better than they would have been if they'd have been at the combine and had all these private workouts and everything. So overall, I know I talked to Urban Meyer. He was ecstatic about getting the 2 corners, particularly, being able to pick up Campbell, right at the first and second round. And DJ Daniel is a good cover guy. All you got to do is go back and look at some of Brent Rollins' tape, which I would encourage people on our site to watch some of this stuff that Dayne and Brent put out, because, as a former coach, there's not anybody putting this kind of stuff out there really, that knows what they're doing really. I mean, you can to coaches and pros and all, but as far as just websites, I mean, this kind of tape that they're putting out is outstanding. And you can see DJ cover Chase in the championship game 2 years ago, and this guy went 3rd or 4th in the draft, and this guy was smoking him the whole time as far as just being on top of him and out of his route. So I think as much as I would like to have him back for another year, I think he's going to probably make that Jacksonville squad because he's a good special teams player. Of course, Ojulari, is going to a guy that Kirby's got a lot of input with Joe Judge. They work together. And he took Thomas last year, and now he's taken – and he had Tay Crowder last year, who Schumann recommended to him. And I think just the fact that talking to the trainers, the fact that he had an injured knee probably put him down a little bit, and his height is a little bit not quite as big as they want. But he's an explosive guy. He'll do really well in that system. And, 3 defensive players there. Stokes, I'm talking about him last. I had a chance to talk to Mel Tucker. He was drafted, and Mel's was just bursting out with pride for the young man because he did, pick him out just like Radi and Jake did at the track meet. But I think the way this guy's developed and the way he's as a player, as a off the field, everything about him, his confidence level. I mean, he's very, very cut now. I mean, he's a lot bigger kid. You look at skinny kid coming out of high school. So that he's what the doctor ordered. When we had Daniel Jeremiah, I'm going to close here and let everybody else talk. But when we had Daniel Jeremiah on our podcast predicting the draft and telling us about where they were going to go, he said that it could go either way with Stokes or Campbell going first or second between the two, but they were going to be really close. There wasn't pretty much any difference between them. And we saw that, Campbell went just right after Stokes. So that's a good projection that Jeremiah had. And the one thing I would say about him that I would give him credit for, out of the 100 guys that he projected, the top 100, 88 went in the top 100. So that's pretty good profiling.
That's a pretty good percentage.
And UGASports had him on live for 30 minutes. So I congratulate working that out and the ability with him and set it up, and then I interviewed him along with Dayne. But I'm telling you, those are pretty good stats for those two guys to get drafted like that. And then we saw the other ones. I won't go through that. I'll let Jake take over. But I say our draft was outstanding. I mean, I hit Kirby up. I said a little different than 2016 when we had McKinnon taking it and McKenzie taking it. I can't even remember. Was it Isaiah? What's his last name?
Yeah, Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, 4th round. That was our only draft pick the first year he was here. So he hit me back with a little chuckle there. But it basically pretty much shows you the way this program's building up.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, there were 2 big surprises for me in this draft when it came to Georgia. And I think the first was Azeez Ojulari slipping out of the first. I understand the concerns about the knee. I don't have any personal concerns about that. I think he showed in every opportunity that he had that was going to be fine long term. And also just not a guy that you want to be playing against with a chip on his shoulder now as a 2nd round pick. But the other one that really surprised me and I was really happy to see was Monty Rice in the 3rd, rising up to the Titans. I thought that, that was a really interesting spot for him to go. I thought that Ben Cleveland might come off the board before he did. I thought Monty could even possibly slip to a 4th or 5th round guy just because, he's had some injury concerns. He's a little undersized. He's a guy who's played a lot of games, got a lot of tread on those tires, but it really speaks to what Georgia has done at that linebacker spot, that they sent another guy in the first 3 rounds at the linebacker spot to go along with Ojulari there. I couldn't be happier for Monty Rice. Well deserving, but like I said, one of the big surprises I thought of the day.
I want to point out one thing, Monty Rice here, and then I'll let Dayne jump in there. If you see some of these highlight tapes of Alabama and their different receivers, one of the things that's really salient in there is the fact that one of the shots when we're playing 2-man, Monty Rice is running down the field with Jalen Waddle. And, of course, Waddle catches a ball, but he's all over him. And I think that's something that the pro guys need to have is a linebacker that can cover. I mean, you can get guys that can play in a phone booth and knock people back, but it's a game now. It's a spread situation, basketball on grass, and you got to be able to cover people. And he's been trained by Glenn Schumann, Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart to play all these matchup coverages. And, he's going to go in there day one and not have to, recognize all these things these coaches are talking about. He can play those coverages and play linebacker. And that's probably why he went in the third round. And the other guy that surprised everybody, but didn't surprise the people that watched him at this Senior Bowl was Trey McKinney. Here's a guy that was injured here. I remember watching the first scrimmage last year in the fall camp, and he hurt his knee and got behind a little bit and didn't get to play a lot. But this guy caught a lot of balls for Florida State. And the thing that really pushed him over the top, talking to a couple guys like Todd McShay and Mel Kiper, was the fact how much he developed his blocking here at Georgia. Now, everybody gets on, and now Roddy gets mad about tight ends not catching the ball. But these pros need these guys to be able to catch it, but they got to be able to block some of these non-technique outside linebackers and all. And you watch some of our 12 personnel with him and Fitzpatrick and him and Darnell Washington in the game, and they were very vivid in the way they can move the pile. And I think that helped him go in the third round.
The NFL draft is such an interesting case because it's kind of a leaderboard of what the pro teams think of the college programs. And so for Georgia's case, there's been enough time that's passed that we have an accurate sample size of what Kirby Smart develops. And when he first got the job at Georgia, he said there are two things that he needed to fix, and that was offensive line. They needed to get bigger there. Well, Georgia just had 2 linemen drafted, 5 over the last 2 years. And they're all going to have a shot to play in the NFL. The other thing is that defensive backs had to get better. And you obviously saw that with the class. That's the good thing, is that at a lot of positions, and I think we're going to see it with defensive line here in the next 2 years based on what's at Georgia and then what is to come. If there's anything to be slightly critical of, it's that in that top first round to fourth round, you're not seeing quarterbacks, you're not seeing wide receivers, and that's what's winning national championships. So if Georgia has a place to improve, it's in that passing game and the development of that. I think we're seeing that, but we're not seeing the fruits of that labor at the NFL level just yet.
Well, I think also to a point where they can really turn this thing around and really accelerate all their efforts is taking some of these former 5-star guys and turning them into these first-round picks. I think that we've seen a couple of guys who had that ranking who slid a little bit. I think that they've got a really good chance in this next class with all those guys to really make that kind of impact. But you want to see a guy like Tyson Campbell, who was a top 25 player in America, get into that first round. Luckily, Eric Stokes was able to kind of pick it up, and that speaks well to development. But you also want to see that they take top-tier athletes and turn them into high picks as well.
I like what you said about with all those defensive backs. First of all, I want to go backtrack a little bit. Congratulate Dayne Young on getting the exact number last week in the how many draft picks were taken. I also predicted correctly that the Falcons would not draft the Bulldogs, which I think everybody else predicted that as well.
Way to go out on a freaking limb.
Like I said, everyone else predicted that as well. But Georgia had 4 defensive backs taken in the draft, which was the most by any other team in the country. It was the most Georgia's ever had in the history of drafts. It was the most in a specific draft, like tied with Miami Hurricanes things like many years ago. So congratulations on that. And Georgia also had 6 players just on defense alone taken, which is most by any other team by far. And the 6 and I think that Georgia's defense is just going to get better and better and better. You lose 6 players that are worthy to be drafted, and your defense can get better. I think it says a lot about how this team and what Kirby is doing to make this team better and improving.
You hope, but we had a good story today by Jason Butt, who talked about the 5 defensive backs who are going to be on NFL rosters, and you hope that DJ Daniel makes the roster. He got a pretty quick undrafted free agent deal right off the bat. 4 guys taken. So basically your entire secondary has all went to the NFL. But you lost a lot of guys to the transfer portal. You lost Devon Wilson, Tariq Stevenson, Major Burns, another one. Branch might hang up his cleats. We had a note about that. So you can lose 9 guys in the secondary in 1 year, either to the transfer to the NFL. So you have to rebuild that secondary, and that's what we talk about a lot. So we'll talk about that when we come back. But I do want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Athens Ford. They do a fantastic job taking care of us, taking care of their customers that come in. If there were a draft for salespeople, all their guys are going the first round because they are just very, very customer service focused. They take care of you. Then they give you these crazy deals like a lifetime powertrain warranty on anything you buy out there that's, you know, new or under 80,000 miles. They have great deals for your trade-in. They have fantastic deals if you're a student, you get a $500 off coupon. If you're in the military, you know, veterans and active members of the U.S. military get $500 off. I say student, but you could be a recent college graduate. So we're right here in May. They're going to have Sanford Stadium will be open for the graduates. We're very excited about that. So you folks, after, you know, when your parents are in town taking you out to that post-graduation lunch, make them swing by Athens Ford. Show them hey, look, I graduated. I'm good for it. Hey, let's look at a new vehicle. Let's look at a pre-owned vehicle. Let's look at one of the certified pre-owned vehicles, because they're your number one in the state of Georgia when it comes to certified pre-owned vehicles. So check them out. And of course, if you're looking for a place to go eat, a good place to go celebrate afterwards, swing by Academia Brewing Company. You can come out here to Watkinsville Classic City Eats, but if you want to take the family out and have a nice beer, go out to Academia Brewing Company. It's on the Broad Street, right behind the what's that racetrack out there. So you can't miss it. But basically beside the mall, they have the outdoor beer garden, which is fantastic. The weather's not today, but usually when the weather's great in the spring here, your whole family can sit out there. There's chef-inspired dishes all over the place. And I want to tell you about one of their new beers called 3 Shades of Black. It's award-winning chocolate milk porter brewed with maple, bacon, coffee, and vanilla. I mean, you got to try it. So
that's up my alley right there.
Maple, bacon, coffee, and vanilla.
And then you take a nap.
And this isn't them dropping little bits of flavoring in there.
No,
they actually made it with the real stuff. So when you get a chance, that's an award-winning beer. Check out 3 Shades of Black out of Academia Brewing Company. But Coach, I want to get your thoughts on the secondary. We knew after spring practice we talked about the secondary a lot, but to have 5 guys go to the NFL and then 4 guys hit the transfer portal, this just seems untenable. This seems like it has to make you nervous as a Georgia fan. It's like, well, who's left? I mean, there are guys left, but it's scary.
Well, one thing about it here, you're doing an all-encompassing thing when you got 4 guys in the transfer portal. Devon Wilson left back before the season started. Tyreek Stevenson left before spring. So there's 2 that have left since spring. So, but certainly there's 4 guys that have left for sure in this calendar year. So you're right there. But they had a chance to practice without Stevenson and Devon. And you know, I had a chance to talk to Gus Malzahn last week just for a second about I was recommending somebody to him, and I asked him how they call him Newt. I asked him how Devon was doing, and he said he's doing great. He's starting for him. He's really a big part of their secondary, and you know, Gus has got a new lease on life down there with this job, you know, and he's fired up. And one of my ex guys that used to work for me at Marshall is the equipment man down there, Rich Warner, and he's really fired up about the new staff. And for the Georgia people, one of the guys that used to help us and do a great job for Kirby, Jesse Stone, who was at Arkansas, has just gone down to join Gus's staff as in a kind of an analyst role. So I'm happy for Jesse too. So we're breaking a little news there, but keep you a little up to date on Georgia people. But anyhow, I just feel like that the secondary is definitely a concern of anybody. You got to be concerned because of the experience, but there is some talent there. Kimber got a lot of work. Ringo got a lot of work. We know Speed's a big, strong, physical guy. And we got this kid coming in from West Virginia, and we'll probably get one more, maybe 2. Who knows now with the Branch leaving. I think that's kind of a surprise because he was in the 2 deep at safety. But, you know, Chris Smith and Scene got a lot of work last year. Scene as a starter, and then he got hurt. But and then Chris came in for LeCount. So I feel good about that. The overriding thing is they're all going to go on the same bus with the offense, with the special teams, with the front 7, and they're not just going to be back there by themselves. They're going to get a good pass rush. They got good underneath coverage with the linebackers. Nakobe Dean didn't practice this spring, but he'll be a stalwart. He'll be among the best players in the country as an inside linebacker. So it'll be a source of concern for sure, but there's some talent there. And we might not play as many coverages. We might not be as versatile in our nickel and dime packages, but we will be a very forcing defense and very talented defense. Just going to be inexperienced. But, I say this about every 50. I'll say it again. You wouldn't want to go hire a kamikaze pilot if he'd flown 50 missions. He got a lot of experience, but, he can't pull the plug. So I think certainly experience is important, but talent, Kimber's got the talent. He's a little small, but he's getting bigger. And Ringo is unparalleled as far as physical ability that with the size and speed that he brings. That's why he's the number one guy in the country. So I would say, I'm not going to say the glass is half empty, but I'm not going to say the glass is actually tilting full. It's kind of in between there, and it's going to have to be some really good help from the forcing unit from the front seven to be a really good secondary early.
Well, Coach, I wanted to ask you too. I mean, when you're talking about this, I think when you're talking about guys like Major Burns, when you're talking about a guy like Devod Wilson, when you're talking about possibly a Duron Branch, that feels like a lot of your depth. Your frontline guys are very strong, but, what do you do to make sure that you're able to keep these guys fresh? Because we know Georgia likes to do a lot of rotating back there to keep those guys kind of, up to speed.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we play a lot of people. I mean, I think we played 37 people on defense last year when you count special teams and all that. But, another guy I haven't mentioned that missed the spring game, and I didn't even know he was going to miss it till Radi told me that he had COVID. And, he didn't tell me, he posted it. But Nyland Green had a good spring, and he's ready to go. He's just not experienced enough in the different things. But the other thing that's kind of a silver lining here, you got a new secondary coach that doesn't have any built-in feelings about any kid. He doesn't have 3 years of working with them and think this guy can't do this or this guy. So everybody's got to open in, and that's why you're going to see maybe some guys surface that we hadn't heard about. And he does have the background where he's able to attract a major player there, and the guy that played for him last year, and that Smith kid from up.
Smith, yeah.
So I think that plus the fact, Kirby's back there, and you also got Muschamp looking over their shoulder, giving advice and analyzing them too. I mean, he knows what it takes, to play in this league. He just had a J.C. Horn drafted higher than any of our guys. So, he knows what it takes. So it's definitely a challenge, no question about it. You can't put lipstick on this and make it a good looking pig. I mean, it's a bad situation as far as experience, but, it's just one of those deals where we're just going to have to play around some of our strengths and take this situation and make it stronger. And we'll see how it works. I don't think Kirby can do anything about it right now. I mean, if a guy wants to leave and doesn't feel like he can play, what the fans need to know is you have these exit interviews. I used to have them with guys, and one of the things I used to do, but when they would come in there, I would have back then we didn't have the tape like we do now, but we had film and breakdowns, and I would show them, these are the guys that are playing ahead of you, and this is why they're playing, and this is you, and this is why you aren't playing. And if you want me to your parents, I'll send it to you. But I don't want to hear any bitching and moaning about you not getting a chance. Here it is right here. It's pretty vivid. And I'm sure that's the same thing that what happens here with some of these guys. They look out there, and it's hard to see the forest for the trees in a way a little bit because, hey, you're not going to be able to play right away, but hey, let's be patient. And I will give two guys credit. Brenny and Speed have hung around here and done what they're supposed to do and have really been part of learning what the system is. And that puts them in a position to be a starter going into fall camp. And that's all they can ask about. I know if you look back before the season started last year, everybody say, well, here's two guys probably going to transfer. Now, they're a big part of our situation just because they're experienced. Now, whether they're ready to go or not, that remains to be seen. But these exit interviews are huge because one of the things you got to do, and I've always felt like this, and I know parents have this, the worst thing you can tell your kid or a player is give them false encouragement about false praise about something that they realistically know you're BSing them about. Hey, tell them exactly how it is. Here's what you got to do. and here's what we need you to do to be able to play, and here's how you stand. And that's why Kirby's recruiting like he is, because these players, they talk to our players, he's going to tell you like it is, and he's going to train and develop you. In the case of Burns, I think maybe he just looked at it and said, look, we've had all these guys leave, and I'm still not a starter. How is it going to be for me? And I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I would have to say that he's looking down the barrel of, hey, realistically, maybe I go somewhere else and play, but we'll see how that works out.
There's also the factor, too, of just after a year of the pandemic where everything has been secluded and people are kind of seeing what's next in their lives in terms of like kind of getting out and being active in public again. And, for a lot of these kids, they're going to want to be closer to home. And so when they see that path there with the transfer portal of more and more players being able to do that, I think one thing, and Paul Finebaum was telling us in our interview with him, that the biggest challenge that college football faces is the transfer portal. And I think that one thing that we've seen happen, we've seen this with business too, that a lot of trends that were already kind of going in a certain direction pre-pandemic have just been expedited by the pandemic and gas thrown on that. And it just goes quicker and quicker and quicker. We're seeing that with the policies with the transfer portal right now. And in general, I'm mostly in favor of the portal. I think that players should have a bit more personal agency and a bit more freedom into that. But, I will say that for whatever reason, the Major Burns transfer, and it's not him specifically, because I know he's got family in Louisiana. I know he's had some tragedy that he's gone through with a death in his family. So this is not about him in particular. I'm glad he gets to do what he wants to do. But for whatever reason, this was the first one that kind of irked me to be like, you just got here. Like I barely knew who you were by the time you got in the field, and there was a path for playing time. Not saying he would have been a starter, but it just seemed like, from my perspective, that there was a path for him to play there. So whatever factors outside of the football field, fine, great. But in terms of a football move, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And so that's the first time that I've gotten irked by it, to be like, this is a different sport than the one that I grew up watching. That doesn't make it bad, but it's different.
Well, in the case of both him and Tyreek Stevenson, you had a guy homesick, Stevenson. I mean, in Miami, hitting him about the COVID, all his friends around, all that. And it was more, to me, a situation of going home. Now, in the Burns case, I think a real telling situation will be, will LSU take him? If they take him, then that's going to be a big feather in his cap. But if they don't, then that's going to be a pretty good situation as far as telling us the evaluation process about whether maybe he's not quite as good as we thought or they thought. Well, hopefully he is. But I think one thing we always need to do is look in the mirror and look at what we're doing in any phase of a program. And right now, defensive back, we're missing on some guys. I mean, as far as coming in and playing, we've had 3 leave here. That we missed on Branch, Burns, Micaiah Tongue. He was an athlete, but those guys just didn't pan out. Daniel, what's the guy's name that we got in here that's a safety that came in early?
David Daniel.
David Daniel's a little small, but certainly got a lot of potential. But, he's not ready yet, but he's going to have to get ready quick. And that walk-on safety now coming more and more.
No, you're right, Coach. There have been a few that we've. Coach, hang up.
I think he's just frozen, which
okay.
is he's got that's a good still of him there. I like that one.
Well, when I think about some of the guys that they've missed on, some of the guys that transferred away, I always go back to Jonathan Abram. How he blew up. And then some other guys. I'm very glad for Dion Wilson playing. It was actually one of my more favorite kids to talk to, Dion Wilson. He posted something the other day. He being a starter is great. You miss on some of these kids, but my point is, everybody in Georgia gets so excited when you pull a kid from Texas, from Louisiana, from South Florida, from New Jersey, from Michigan, from California. You're like, all right, they come to Georgia. Sometimes those kids want to go home.
Exactly.
It is something that plays into it. And then when that happens, we see people start going, I hate this transfer portal, and I'm like, well, think about this. If you were and let's just say that a Major Burns goes through his exit interview. It feels like he doesn't have a good shot at playing time. Plus, he's got homesickness. He leaves. If you're a Georgia, you're like, oh man, I hate to lose him. But at the same time, with the fact that the NCAA came out and said, yeah, you got immediate eligibility this year. If you're on a decent team or you're the best player on a bad team, you're like, man, we're going to go 5-5, or we're going to go 7-5, or we're going to go 6-6. But I'm going to be all conference. I could go to Georgia. I could go to Alabama. I could go to Ohio State. In other words, as much as you hate to lose your second, third, your guys that help you get through practice, Georgia's not seeing a lot of – now, Tariq Stevenson was a tough loss there because that's a guy who you just penciled in as a starter. He helps you – he wins you the bowl game, with a great play there at the end. But you're not losing a ton of guys right off the top. You're not losing a ton of 5-stars. Now, quarterbacks are a different scenario altogether, but it's not like you're losing left tackles and right tackles and, all conference defensive ends and stuff like that. But who's going to benefit more from the transfer portal in Alabama being able to cherry pick the best players on average teams and a Georgia being able to do the same, or a 5-5 team being able to take away your second and third string guys? It's going to be advantage to the bigger teams. The rich are going to get richer by using the transfer portal.
The transfer portal is basically like it's all about perspective. If you're getting the players, you love it. If you're losing the players, you hate it. Yeah. Basically, and Georgia's in a position of being one of the top tier teams.
Oh, yeah, bringing in Trey McKinney, Javon Williams.
Exactly.
Well, and it's not like, listen, you said it benefits Alabama because they're able to go in and cherry pick from bad teams. They just took a hell of a wide receiver from Ohio State. It ain't like they're having to take over the bones, man. I mean, this is a situation where, that one-time thing, the rich are going to get richer. I mean, the competitive balance of it is going to change everything for sure. I think that I like it. And we have a question here I want to throw to you guys because I do think it's a really interesting one when we're talking about all of this. This one comes to us from Jordan Green over on the board. He wants to know, who do you think has the most to gain from Major Burns' departure? Is it a DB on the current roster, a DB possibly in the portal, or Major Burns himself?
I'm going to say it comes down to this, and Coach, I'll get you to wait on this. The minute you see somebody leave, you see Deron Branch hang up his cleats, you see Major Burns leave, and people go, well, that gives us 2 more roster spots. But that's not always true because you have that initial counters rule. So to me, if you have a guy leave, a Major Burns leave UGA, and who was, again, just assuming that he was told in the exit interview, hey, you're second, third on the depth chart, you still got some development to do, but Georgia has room for an additional initial counter, then that helps Georgia the most because they can bring in a transfer who could play right away thanks to the new NCAA rule or the exemption. He can come in, count. He's under your 85. He's under your initial qualifiers. Georgia has a chance to improve there. But
yeah, here's the thing that really is tough to I hope I can make it clear. We can take 25 initials a year,
right?
Okay, and we can have 85 players. So if we lose 4 guys that go to the pros or transfer or everything else, we don't get 29 initials. If anybody we bring in is going to be counted in the 2022 class. So if you bring a transfer in that's going to have to count as an initial, then that initial counts into 85. So it's not all hunky dory there. You got to look at, hey, this guy better be able to play right away, or otherwise I'm going to bring in a guy I'm going to develop. So, but it's kind of a chicken and the egg situation though, because we do, as you mentioned, we got a very perplexing depth situation there. So you're going to have to maybe be a little bit more liberal in taking that initial and say, well, maybe he might not be able to start for us, but he can give us depth. He can play star, he can play dime, he can play special teams, or, you might bring in a guy that might not be a starter, but just help your depth. But the biggest thing is having knowledge of him, because you can't make a mistake about him. And that's where having our secondary coach know about that kid from West Virginia. He knows what we had and he knows what's here. So that really helps you.
I thought that's a really good phrasing by Jordan's question, which, by the way, I know Jordan. He just had a baby son. So welcome Henry to the world. And shout out to Alice and your wife, Erica, too. Yeah. So shout out Jordan. He's a coach down in Lawrence County where I'm from, and a friend of my family. So anywho, the question is a good one because it shows the kind of butterfly effect that all of these roster moves have. Because if you think about it this way, it took a running back leaving Georgia that had been committed for Tay Crowder to come at all. And Tay Crowder got that call on a Tuesday, right? Tay Crowder gets the Rose Bowl play. Tay Crowder gets drafted as Mr. Irrelevant. He's connected to Joe Judge. All of a sudden, Glenn Schumann has a connection to the NFL. Now, I'm sure he has plenty, but what I'm saying is that what Coach just told us is that his word helped Tay Crowder get a spot in the NFL. Butterfly effect goes crazy there in this kind of stuff. And so I think the person that's going to benefit most is probably a high school senior, because one thing that I've seen from Kirby Smart is that when there is a deficit of something on the roster, they go hard to fix it. You've seen that with wide receivers when a couple of years ago, Georgia was kind of left out in the cold after a couple of situations, when Holloman had to leave, when a couple of tight ends left early that weren't expected. Georgia doesn't like to be caught unprepared, and not saying that they were with the secondary situation, because it's a lot of players that have left for multiple reasons, pro or transfer. But I would say that they're going to really load up at that spot, Jake.
Oh, no question about it. I mean, I think that honestly, they've loaded up at that spot in previous years. I tell people all the time, it feels like if there's an open spot, Georgia's very open to spending it on a defensive back. They go hard every year. They take a lot of guys. And I think that you're really seeing why right now. They realize what it is in this situation, in the current times with the transfer portal, but also just how the game has evolved. You know, you've got to be hitting on these guys, and the wider net you cast, the better chance you're giving yourself to come up with a good player who's going to be able to compete in the SEC.
Yeah, 20% of your team's defensive backs. I mean, you got four guys. That's the one position. You got four, you can call them corners, safeties, nickel, dime, whatever you want to, but you got to have 8, and you really need 10 when you look at special teams. So a lot of back and forth there, but the one thing that we had Mac Brown on, and he brought it out, and Kirby has spoken to me about it, and I've talked to other coaches, is just roster management 101. It just gets to be tougher all the time. Guys leaving early, guys transferring, people getting drafted, people getting hurt. One thing after another. I mean, you look at Ringo's injury last year, really kind of helps us out just from the standpoint that we had those 5 guys that are playing in the pros now playing. So, he would have played some, but now he got all that training. He's fresh, his shoulders repaired. He tried to play with a bad shoulder, ready to go. And, more than likely he'll just play 3 years, maybe 2. I mean, who knows? But that was pennies from heaven. Just getting that there's an injury situation that benefits you a little bit.
Well, let me just toss this out there to all of us. Lavassier Carroll's already moved over to take some snaps at defensive back. Is there another player on the roster that could potentially do that?
Another Mark Webb, you mean?
For that position, you're looking at, it's not going to be another running back, so I think you're looking at receivers, right?
Yeah, most people, a lot of players in the high school that go to studs play both wide receiver and corner, so there's a lot of possibilities you could say that.
I don't particularly see it.
I think that would be what we call a New York Life situation. We used to call it an insurance team. We call it the New York Life. If we had a really catastrophic situation, we need to ready to go. You just can't call the game off, and we would teach a receiver to play nickel back, or we'd teach a defensive lineman to come in on the goal line on offense, or we'd teach a offensive lineman to be ready to go in on our short yardage package on defense. It's just 10 minutes twice a week where you'd be on the New York Life team where you could play another position. And every team pretty much does that. Not as much as it used to, but I think we could see some New York Life policies getting enacted here around UGA this year.
Give me a Kyrus Jackson in that scenario.
He can do it.
He's just an absolute athlete.
Well, and how important does the spring performance of a guy like Dan Jackson look now? A guy who was a walk-on, a guy who people didn't know a lot about, and then he kind of starts generating some buzz, and then all of a sudden, it feels like Dan Jackson's got himself a place when it comes to depth on this team.
Von Bullard also had a really good spring, and especially at the spring game.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jackson's just a case of what to do, and Kirby's got a lot of confidence in him, but he's got some limitations. We'll just see how that works out. But that's a good point.
I think Darnell showed those limitations in the G-Day game.
I mean, you take maybe so, but you take anybody in the country, pro or college, they're not going to make that play. I mean, let's don't bust up on that now. Come on, Dane, take it easy on him now. Can you tackle that?
Oh, that's the greatest clip of all
Somebody
time.
told you.
Come on, that was great.
The
first person to get up and laugh about it would be him.
Dude,
I was hoping Dane was suggesting that they convert Darnell Washington to defensive back. So.
He was set up there, just knock balls down.
And knock the defender
Throw
down.
over this.
Run back and raise your hands.
But to your point, Coach, if Darnell Washington's running at me, I'm cowering in fear. That is not anything. No, sir.
I'm saying crap for that Las Vegas native.
I'm looking for my keys, man. I'm like, I'm out. Sorry.
A quick story here at Oklahoma. We had Tony Casillas, nose guard, just a trained assassin over there. I mean, Switzer used to say, if he's going to practice today, I'm not coming to practice. I mean, he didn't want this guy knock our center around. We were doing what you call the Oklahoma drill, and the center was trying to block him, and our O-line coach was getting on him, hard, and finally, just getting knocked back. And finally, the center just stepped back and did like a toreador, a matador, and just did that. Ole, can you come on, coach? You do it. Told that O-line, step up and do it. If I can't do it, I want to see you do it. He just took his arm. Hey, come on, coach. Show me how to do it.
But it did bring up the conversation this past week. A lot of schools were taking shots at Kirby Smart because some of those 5-star guys didn't make it into the first round. And I'm like, I don't know that that's a Kirby Smart issue, or is that a rivals and the industry ranking guys incorrectly issue? But he did get some of it. And I know it's kind of a different tangent here, but when a guy like a Tony Casillas, you know what you're getting there. George Pickens, a guaranteed guy. Stokes and Campbell and Azeez Ojulari, those guys popping in are great. But when you mentioned Keely Ringo and how that was, beneficial for him, if he's going to be injured, last year was a perfect time for it to happen. But it reminds me, Azeez Ojulari missed his first year. So he basically played 2 years for Georgia. We might see the same thing with a Keely Ringo. Keely misses his first year and basically plays 2 years and goes pro. And for a lot of people who are banging on some of these 5-stars and guys not getting taken in the first round, how many of them only played 3 years or 2 years?
That's good. And you don't see that in the past. You guys around 4 years and all that. But now, Pickens could have a situation like that if he doesn't come back and rehab as quick as we hope. Hopefully he can. But one thing I would say to the people being critical, how about the player? Doesn't he take some of the blame here? I mean, his ass is the one out there. The coach can't play for him. If he's not having
a year early,
a lot of that sometimes as a player, just not as good as he was supposed to be. You know what I mean? So definitely it's a two-way street, no question about it. But usually speaking, if a guy can make it and develop as a player, he's going to develop. And sometimes you get a little better coaching and in certain positions, but usually speaking, if a guy's got it, he's making it in the pros. If he's playing at some small 1AA school or some AI school, he's going to make it. So,
absolutely. That Jake will tell you when we go to camps and you'll hear these NFL guys telling the kids, especially at the rivals camps, when they get up and speak to them, they're like, look, if you can play, the NFL will find you. They have staffs, of 20 guys deep whose job it is to find the kids who can play, to find the guys. And a lot of you are like, well, I need to go to Alabama. I need to go to Georgia. I need to go to Clemson. I need to go to Ohio State so the NFL will see me so I can get tape out there. No, trust me. Doesn't matter where you are. You can be at Sanford. They'll find you. If you're
now more than ever. Now more than ever.
Yeah. So
didn't the Falcons draft someone from the South Dakota College of the Mines or something?
Yes, I believe they signed a guy from College of the Mines as an undrafted free agent, I believe.
That's
that's what it was.
That's Colorado College of Mines, isn't it?
I thought there
I'll be
was.
honest with you, I have no idea. I don't know where mines still are, and I don't know why that we need a college for them. But
Probably
I'm
got
glad we have
every state. They probably got a mine.
You know what
Roddy, give a call to
Georgia
whoever
mine?
publishes that site.
Hey, anyway, speaking of places that we may not know about, I don't know about that one, but I do know of a place that no matter what small town you're in, if you're in North Georgia, our friends over at Aaron Overhead Doors will come to your house. They will find you if you have an issue. You say, hey, look, I need some commercial work done. I need a commercial repair. I need installation. I need loading dock. I need storefront security doors. I need high-speed doors. I need industrial fans. I need curtain walls. Any of that type of stuff for your small business in a small town. It won't matter. They will come and find you. If you're in Gwinnett, Cobb, DeKalb, Barrow, Habersham, Stevens, Dawson, Hall, Forsyth, White, Walton, Clark, Oconee, Cherokee, any of the cities or locales or neighborhoods in those places, they will come out to you and they will do it. And it will be the best installation, repair, assessment that you could ever get. So our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors will take care of you. And again, they're a customer service company. They are here to make your life easier, to fix it fast, fix it correctly, and then they will check up and say, hey, is everything up to your liking? They're not going to just you hear tires squealing as they pull out of your driveway and throw the bill out the window and say we'll never see you again. These guys are all about customer service, and they will take care of you. And we missed double points Tuesday. I'm hoping everybody that wanted their pizzas yesterday, or your salad or your custom pasta, your sandwiches. I hope you did it yesterday. If not, hey, you can still jump on the Your Pie app right now and order it and pick it up. You can either it'll be ready to pick up or they'll bring it out to your car. Either way, reach out to all the Your Pie locations. You can try the new key lime cream gelato. Get that one if you want something really good. I had it the other day. I'm gonna tell you, that was legit.
And you're a key lime
And
specialist.
I'm a key lime snob. Everyone's like, oh, we have key lime. I'm like, you got these fake key lime flavoring that you throw into everything. Kit Kat key limes, I don't know about that. M&M's came out with a key lime flavoring. It was not good. But our friends at Your Pie have a fantastic key lime gelato you need to check out. And of course, their chicken bacon ranch sandwich. That's lights out. So may not know where the Mines is, but I do know where a great pizza is. It's at Your Pie. So check them out.
One of the questions,
Colorado.
One of the questions we had today was, obviously with all this surrounding defensive backs, is how does recruiting factor into this? How do the Bulldogs kind of make up some ground in this 2022 class where that's concerned? They're already off to a strong start. You got 3 guys right off the bat who are, I think, they're all Rivals 250 guys. You got Marquise Groves-Killebrew out of Brookwood, who I think is a guy on the rise. Didn't do a lot of camp action this year, but I think that he's a guy who people are really starting to buy into a little bit more heavily than they did initially. I've always been a fan, think that he's a good player, a guy that can help you immediately. You got Dion Bowie out of Bainbridge. Just an absolute screamer back there. Small, undersized, but a guy who has proven time and time again, whether it be 7-on-7 or camps, that he's a guy who can get out there and contribute. And then, of course, just up the road from Athens, you got Malachi Starks at Jefferson High School, a versatile athlete, a guy who could probably play either side of the ball. They're thinking safety right off the bat, and I think that's a great fit for him. Just one of those guys, though, it's going to it'll take him a little bit of time, I think, to develop because he's been a jack of all trades for the Dragons. But I was looking over the list of offers of who else could be in this class. And I'm just going to run down the names that I know Georgia is still involved with. Jaheim Singletary, 5-star, Ohio State commit out of Jacksonville, Florida. He's a guy that they're not going to give up on. He had Georgia in the mix up until the very end, right until that Ohio State commitment. That was a little bit of a surprise. Be interesting to see, does that closer to home factor end up playing there? You've got beyond that, Toriano Pride out of St. Louis, Missouri, another 4-star guy, undecided right now. Georgia involved there. You've got Marcus Allen out of Marietta, Walton High School. They've pulled several guys out of there. Marcus Allen, the brother of I'm blanking on his name. The kid who initially went to Notre Dame and is now at Georgia Tech. Damn it. Mark or
You're fired.
okay. I'm sorry. I can't remember every kid's name for the last 6 classes. Anyway, he's got a brother. He went there. He was a guy Georgia recruited as well. Marcus Allen, I don't know that it's been hot and heavy with Georgia, but you got to think possibly it starts to pick back up. Jordan Allen out of Lafayette, Louisiana, a guy who's really been on the rise for a 3-star guy. Seems like everybody's involved with Jordan Allen right now. Miami really pushing hard. LSU, you got to think kind of kicking on the tires there as well, but Georgia has been very involved. Kamari Wilson out of IMG Academy, that's the first name to keep circled on your list, in my opinion. Already set to come up for an official visit. He'll be here this summer. You know, you're talking about one of the top safeties in the nation in him, Dayne Everett, if a teammate of his over there at IMG Academy, already locked in on his official visit. Antonio Kite, a guy we've interviewed previously, in the state of Alabama, could be a hard pull from over there, but they're involved. Trey Donaldson, a safety out of Tallahassee. Emory Floyd, a safety out of Powder Springs. Feels like Auburn surging there. Who knows? We'll see how they're able to sell it. JQ Hardaway out of Phoenix City, Alabama. I'm talking about, listen, this is just 4s and 3s and 5s all over the board. You're involved with, outside of the 3 commits you already have, 15, 20 of the top players at that position. So it's clear that they're, Traquan Fegans as well out of Oxford, Alabama. So it's clear that they're prioritizing this aside from just, going into the transfer portal and, they're going through the recruiting realm to take care of these needs in 2022.
And Jake, I think you're thinking of Derek Allen from
Derek Allen. Damn it.
Jake, you mentioned Auburn, and so I wanted to ask Coach real fast because I didn't text him about this, so I'll just do it on the show, whatever. The graphic that Auburn put out yesterday, did you see that? Were they taking credit for Matthew Stafford and Todd Gurley?
People make mistakes. I mean, but whoever figured that one out was smoking some bad weed, man. I mean, that was just.
I get, because Georgia did the same thing with
Scott Cochran.
Similar with Scott Cochran. They pointed out all the guys that he had developed in the first rounders, and everyone's like, "Well, see, Georgia did the same thing." I'm like, "No, it's not the same," because basically we had one guy. You're like, "Here's who he's worked with. He's joining the staff here," and I get this. It is similar, but you're not saying, "Hey, let's pull our entire staff and everybody that they peripherally coached."
It's a bad trend all around.
Were some of these where these guys? I mean, was this a?
There was some Boise State on there. There were some Georgia guys.
To be fair, Matthew Stafford found the end zone at Auburn more than some of those players at Auburn.
Is this the Ralph Edwards? This is your life. Has everybody that ever coached on there? I mean, Derek Mason. Who have they had at Vanderbilt that's gone to the pros?
On defense? Oh man. They had more offensive guys.
Zach Cunningham.
Yeah. The linebacker
was
was
the guy that I could think of.
Yeah.
But
linebacker and a receiver.
And listen, I love Mike Bobo as much as anybody else. But when you think of Mike Bobo and Todd Gurley, what comes to your mind? What comes to my mind is South Carolina.
Not giving him the damn ball.
South Carolina.
And I've defended that call relentlessly. So
I just want to know what Mike Bobo's phone looked like yesterday when that graphic gets out, because all these Georgia people saying, "Come on, Mike." Not that he made the graphic or had anything to do with it, I'm sure, but just the fact that he's on there with it.
Kirby sent him a few crying.
I do want to give a shout out to Mike Bobo, because his son Drew was at the Rivals camp, and we got to say hi to him. And he says his health is good. He's very excited about what's going on in Auburn, and it was just good to see Mike Bobo again. The guy's still razor sharp and funny as hell, and he had some fingers. He teased us a good bit, but and he took the abuse back. So
how does the kid look? How does Drew look?
I like Drew, man.
A hell of a lot bigger than when I coached against him.
He's a big old cat now, man.
He's coming in here on the first, isn't he? For a while.
He is. He'll be here on the first.
And Georgia very early in the.
He's big. He's not a elite guy yet, but he's got some growing to do. But he's big, and of course he's fundamentally sound, because he's had all those coaches. He's grown up in it, And I look back to my son, who's 6 foot, 160 pounds, and they used to go head to head, and he and Drew would just bang on each other in the lines, and then Mike would whisper to the guy over at Prince Avenue, "Hey, run this against Radi's defense." Son of a bitch, and ripples a new one. I hated him for it, but again, great to see a kid like Drew grow up and get offers all over the place. I'm very excited for Drew. Kid looks really good.
I want to say this thing also about Mike Bobo. I just always remember like recruiting stories when he was at Georgia, and all the recruits saying, "Oh, I loved Coach Bobo because I played video games against him." Yeah. I'm looking back here and seeing all these video games here at Classic City Eats, and I might play a few after we're done with this.
No, I mean, Auburn getting him as a recruiting guy. I mean, as an offensive recruiter, fantastic, but as a recruiter, I mean, there were times when Georgia was not nearly as highly thought of as it was now, and Alabama was still Alabama. For him to be able to go in and get a Malcolm Mitchell and a Jay Rowe right out from under Kirby Smart, and go at those times they went head to head, with the Chris Conley and guys like that. That's it's just some of the stuff that Mike Bobo's been able to pull off. You hate to have him still in the conference. Like, go back to Colorado, Mike.
Colorado State's a fun place.
Well, I mean, some of the quotes I've read from Bo Nix, it sounds like that offense is a bit of a breath of fresh air for Auburn's offensive players compared to what they have been doing.
Yeah. So, anyway, I didn't mean to turn it to the Mike Bobo show. I just wanted to give him a shout out for you brought up the Auburn thing, and I do want to. If anybody got a hell of a lot of grief about that and would give it right back, would be Mike. So our hats off to him, and continued wishes for his continued good health. So, all right. Any other questions, Jake?
No, I think that was about it. Everybody just wanted to talk DBs today, as you might expect. So, between that and recruiting, DBs. So, yeah. I think we pretty well hammered that topic home for everybody. But listen, if you didn't catch our notes on Monday, go check those out. We had 23 updates fresh off of the Rivals camps. All these guys talking about where Georgia stands with them. We're putting the stories out. Go read the one today from Braden Joyner. I really like that one. I just think that he's a great kid too, and fun to talk to, man.
I can't believe you said he was too small.
Yeah. Oh, that's
you are a terrible analyst.
Yes.
What were you thinking?
So a full comment. Braden Joyner gets to the Rivals camp, and I'm like, that looks a little small because he's listed at 6'3". I don't know he's 6'3", but I'm just thinking that's not a typical Georgia Alabama guard. For a guy to have as many offers, he looks a little undersized. And in the drills that they do when they go offense versus defense, the defense gets to know when the ball is going to be snapped. They don't have to worry about the run. They basically just do a pass rush. There's no help from, you don't get chipped or anything like that. It's just one-on-one. And all these guys, they try to get their sets. They try to backpedal, the kick step. They do all this stuff to take on the, as Coach was talking about, sometimes we'll see a left tackle take on a 180-pound defensive end in a 9 technique who just gets to run around him. But Braden Joyner gets out there at right guard, and normally, you're backing up trying to keep your pass protection. Well, Braden figured out it would be a lot easier to pass protect if I knocked the dude across from me on his ass the minute the ball snapped, and he takes a step forward. The defensive tackle has no idea this is coming and gets knocked back about 3 feet. And I'm like, okay, now I see why everybody in the world wants that kid. And he had a great story at UGASports. You need to check that out. It's on the front page today. He's got the gloves on. So when you get a chance, be sure to check that out. Plus the story about the defensive backs. And of course, if you haven't checked out that Paul Finebaum interview, this isn't just, this isn't Paul on his show saying something about Georgia. This is a 30-minute interview with he and Coach Donnan, and he tells some funny stories about Coach Donnan, so you need to check that out. But he talks about UGA. The stuff he said about Dan Mullen was brutal. Talking about the way the season ended last year was an embarrassment. His thoughts about what would it take for Clemson to end, the Clemson's run, how Oklahoma is going to be really good, and his thoughts about Nick Saban. A lot of good stuff there.
Big love for Athens, Georgia in there as well.
Oh, yeah.
And a comment about how Georgia's leading the way in the name, image, and likeness. That's going to only be a bigger story as we go in every aspect of what we do.
I think what him talking about that, and then Mac Jones talking about again, that's another guy we've had on,
Mac Brown.
Mac
Mac Jones
Brown.
is a quarterback
Yeah,
now.
I know. I'm still in the NFL draft, but having Mac Brown come on and talk about the fact that you might only see 5-10 guys taken in a class because of the whole roster management thing, unless they fix that. There are some stuff that have been on these last few shows with Coach Donnan and Dayne that are going to blow up going forward. I mean, heck, we got Governor Kemp is going to be signing that name, image, likeness thing here in Athens, July 1st?
Damn, I
So,
thought you were gonna say
He's going to sign it.
podcast.
He's going to sign it tomorrow over
That's
there at the stadium, but it becomes in effect July 1st.
right. So it's coming. So it's
I'll put in the media request. We'll get them on.
there. We do know some people. We'll try it.
And we have Jack Bowerly. We'll probably put that up tomorrow. Important for a few reasons. One of which, the season may be over, but Olympic trials are on the way within, I think, like 40 days at this point. It's pretty good commentary from quite an Olympic stalwart, I guess you could say, in Jack Bowerly.
I'm just going to ask you as a tease here, all these guys here. Jack Bowerly's been the head swimming for men and women. You can't answer this, Dane.
I can answer it.
42 years. How many times has combined has his teams been in the top 10 in the country in 42 years?
I would say 35.
That's a good guess. That's probably about what I would say too.
Roddy?
I'll go 37.
51.
Out of 44?
Out of 42 years, 51 times.
Oh, you're counting.
Men and women.
You cheated.
I don't know if the question was phrased properly. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I said
I
40.
just think about
How
how many
can I
rings
phrase
does
it
that
any
pull
more
back?
salient? Stats, listen to me, man.
Yeah. But my favorite thing with Barrowly, and this is at another place that we that I was involved with working wise. And speaking of Olympics, he actually called a show that I was working on when he was walking through the procession, because the time change was when I was on air, and it was the coolest thing for him to talk while he was in the little Olympic
procession.
procession.
So they're marching into the stadium, and he calls the radio show.
He called the radio show, and like they said, the time difference was it was perfect for the radio show, and he was saying, "Oh, look, I got this NBA player right next to me right here walking with me, and I got like this Olympic gymnast right next to me, and this and that," and it was pretty cool. I mean, he's one of the greatest people for Georgia because he goes to every single event at Georgia, whether it's tennis, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whether it's baseball, whether it's softball, whether it's soccer, and so does the players that play for him. I mean, you see him at volleyball games, you see him everywhere. It's a great thing that Coach Barrowly does, and he's a great guy.
I wonder if he had his offer. Did he take a chair into the procession like Reese Hoffa did?
He might.
If you ever get a chance, ask Reese Hoffa about taking a chair into that processional, because he knew he's going to have to stand out there forever. So he takes one of those small folding chairs, and he has all these NBA guys who are tired of standing around for 2 hours offering him thousands of dollars for his chair. He's like, nope.
Reese Hoffa has a million good stories.
He does. But so does Jack Bowerly. So be sure to tune into that. And if you missed the ones with Jeff Wallace and Manny Diaz, go check those out, because those are fantastic as well.
And good luck to them this week.
Absolutely. It starts up. So anyway, we will be back onto our regular schedule next Tuesday at noon. Be sure to check us out, and we will see you later.